Okay.
No. What you can do for, if you wanted to do some kind of color, to add another color for polymer clay, you can use any type of powder, like a powdered color. Like what I use is, you can either get it pre-powder where it's just in a little jar and it's a bunch of powder. You can get colored powder that way. I've even used chalk, like sidewalk chalk or chalk from a chalkboard, or the colored ones. You can just kind of shave it with an X-Acto knife or any kind of sharp knife, get some powder. Or I've used chalk pastels too, because there's more color in that. Just create a little powder, take a paintbrush, dab it in the powder, and then just paint it where you want the color to go.
Okay.
So, yep. You can add more color, you can add shadow lines, you can kind of think of it almost like airbrushing, but you're using powder instead of a liquid.
Got it.
So yeah, that'll work for this guy. For any polymer clay, before you bake it. You can't do it after you bake, otherwise it won't work.
Let's see.
Okay, well, hello, everybody. Hang on, let me get our last person in here. We need Alex, there we go. He is joining. Still joining.
Hi, Evan.
Change your name.
Hello. All right, perfect. Okay, I think we have everybody. We have Diane, we have Julie, we have Sharon, we have Evan, we have Jack, and we have Alex. Yep, perfect. All right. Well, let's get rolling here. So this will be week 3. So next week will be our last week. So then in theory, we should have them all finished up by next week. Okay. In theory, but if you don't have them done, that's fine, because you have the materials at home with you. You can finish them at your own time. So I believe, let's get all of our stuff out here. Julie, did you end up doing the pre-recorded one?
I started with it, but I didn't finish that. So I'm gonna just kind of catch up as I go.
Okay.
I might work on something a little different, but I had to get my COVID shot, and it happened to be right in the middle of class.
Oh,
so
of course.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, but hey,
they knew you had class.
Yeah, right. There you go. So thanks.
A little one.
First half. I didn't get to the second half.
Okay. There we go. Okay, so everybody, if I remember correctly, we've finished the eyeballs with the eyelids. We got the mouth put in, and if you wanted a tooth put in. Okay, so I believe that's where we ended off. Oh,
and our little toe thing.
Yep, and then making the little, sorry, I have a piece of paper on my guy here. It's not coming off. There we go. We made the little divots down here on the bottom so we could start the toes this week. So we can get the toes done. So if you made 2, then obviously you should have 2 divots. I did not do it on this little guy. I'll do it real quick. So you should have 2 little divots for the toes to rest inside.
It is so hard to make the divots.
Yeah, they're just like little skin flaps. It'll form a little bit more when we actually start working with it and putting the toes in. It'll come together a little bit more. Because this right here is where, hang on, focus, there we go. This right here is what we're looking for, is this little skin flap. That's kind of resting right up on top of the toes. And remember, we're not making the whole foot. We don't have to, because his foot is under his skin. So we're just making the toes. Now, depending how big your little skin flap is, I don't know why that's not, there we go, is going to determine how many toes you can fit in there. You might be able to fit more than 3. You might be able to fit 5, 6. It doesn't matter. Just because we have 5 toes doesn't mean the creature has to have 5 toes. Okay, so what we want to do is go to our little hefty
Mine is
ball of skin. We're
Mine is-
going to take off a little chunk. Now, this little chunk that I have right here on my finger, that should give me all the toes I need for one side. Okay, just so you can kind of see how toothpick reference, okay, toothpick reference, just to kind of see how big this ball is that I have, this little chunk that I ripped off. This will give me enough toes to fill one side, if not maybe some onto the other side, if I only want 3 toes on one side. Okay, so we're going to be working small here. And now if you made a little itty bitty one, you're going to be working even smaller. Okay.
no.
Here's where patience comes into play. Okay. So obviously started in a ball. What I like to do and what worked really smooth for this guy, the one that I already did, is I just kind of rolled it out a little bit into like a little tic tac, like a little mini tic tac. You can use your toothpick if you have a knife, an X-Acto knife or a butter knife that you've been using, or you could use your fingernail just to kind of cut a chunk off. Okay. See that little chunk?
Wow.
Okay. Now that little chunk, I'm going to roll into a ball. And remember, it's always the easiest way to start with is in a little ball. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll that out into a teardrop. Okay, not a full on little tic tac like we've been doing or into a worm. I want it in a teardrop. Okay, so it's skinny on one end, bigger on the other. Okay, so now I have this tiny little teardrop. So you can see the difference between the tic tac and the teardrop. Okay. And yes, one is really, really small. So with this teardrop, I might want to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to size to my body. Okay, I'm going to size it because this is going to be a toe, but I don't know what toe it's going to be. It might be the pinky toe. It might be the big toe, depending on the size that this is. So again, if you want, you can use your fingers to gently pick it up, but sometimes you end up squishing it, trying to pick up something this small. Or if you have fingernails like I do, you can just gently tap it with the fingernail and usually it pops up. Or you can scoop it up with a fingernail, or you can use the toothpick. And always try and poke it or pick it up on the skinny side, because the big side of the teardrop, the ball part of the teardrop, is the part that's going to be sticking out. Okay, the skinny part is what's going to be tucked under the body. So that's okay if that gets a little squished, because it's going to be hidden anyways. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of size it. I'm going to hold it up
Big
to
toe.
my body to see if I want that to be a big toe or not. For me, I want that to be one of the middle toes. That's too small to be a big toe for me. So I already have a toe made. So I'm going to set this one aside so I can build my other toes accordingly. Okay, so if you have one that you already sized and you know what toe you want that to be, now you can go back to your little tic tac one and you can cut off the amount that you need to make your other toes. So my big toe, I want to be bigger. So I'm going to take more clay. I'm going to roll that into a ball. And then I'm going to roll that into a teardrop. Okay. And then I'm going to size it next to my other one. If I can get it over there. There we go.
This thing is tiny.
Uh-huh. So these ones, don't try and rush through them because you don't want to lose the roundness of the toes on the big part, on the big end of the teardrop. You don't want to lose that round part. So just take your time with them because the toes are going to be really, really small. So they take a lot. Okay. So just take your time with them. So I'm thinking, because the size of mine, I could probably fit 4 toes in mine. Okay. Considering the size. So I might actually make one a little bit bigger and then make one smaller. Sometimes it's easier when you're trying to roll it if you just pick it up, put it in your hand, and then just roll it in a circular motion on your palm and then put it down before you do the teardrop.
I'm using a butter knife to make it into a teardrop.
That works too. One is a little bit bigger.
4 toes too.
So again, you can decide how many toes yours is going to have. It might have more, it might have less. Now, the smaller they become, the more delicate you have to be. Okay. So this little itty bitty one that I made right here, that might be too small. So I might use this one as a big toe for my little guy. Yep. And if your hands are warm, I would suggest not to try and make the teardrop in your palm, because if your hands are warm, the clay tends to stick to you. So it's easier if you just make them on whatever surface you're using.
Man, get in there.
It keeps vibrating.
So I have 4 toes right here for my little guy. Now, before I attach them, I'm going to make the other 4 toes since I have these out, because then I can use them as size reference. Okay, so I already have the sizes made. So I'm just going to go ahead and make the other side right away before we attach them, because then you can just kind of hold them up to see if they're close enough. They don't have to be exact. If it's a little off, that's okay. I don't want you to get too stressed out about if one toe is slightly larger than the other. That's all right if it is.
Oh, God.
Sorry if you can hear my sister in the background. She's practicing for a talent show we're doing.
Oh, fun.
We go to a co-op. We go to a co-op, and every year for Valentine's they do a Valentine's exchange and and food and a talent show.
Oh, that sounds fun. What co-op do you go to?
Anchor.
Okay, because I was going to say sometimes we teach at co-ops. I have one with Northern Lights right now.
Mm. Well, that's the name of the group,
Yeah, yep.
the name of the church.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what the name of the church is.
How's everybody going with their toes?
Wait, where'd my 4th one go? Huh?
If you lose a toe, that's okay. You can always make another one.
Not a real left toe, though.
Or you can just leave that toe completely off. That's fine.
I think my guy needs a podiatrist.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Input volume. Turn it.
Poor little guy.
You guys can probably hear my sister in the background. She's singing to some music.
Somewhere. Yeah.
I just thought I had one.
Oh, okay.
Handier.
Oh, okay.
I was really just trying to, get into your
Yeah,
background and
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, some toes are bigger than other toes.
Yep, and that's all right. And again, some of you, just because I have 4 doesn't mean you have to do 4. Some of you might have 2. Some of you might be able to fit 6. And that's all right. You just make as many according to your guy.
Yeah,
My
that's,
guy can only fit 4. And I think for my little tiny dude, I'm just going to do 2 on each side. Because the smaller you work, the harder it is.
I can't find my toothpick.
Oh, that's, I'm gonna make a piece.
poor little feller.
Hmm.
That's,
Anybody have any issues with their toes right now? Besides trying to form them being really small?
No.
We're all good?
I guess.
As good as we can get.
I was gonna
Keep
say, I'm
making
not
them
sure
all
how
the
much,
same size.
I'm not sure how much help I could be with not, physically being there to help you get your toes, but
No, you
I can
explained
still
it
try
well,
and
though.
walk you through it.
Oh, boy.
Okay,
Does everybody have all their toes
yeah,
For both characters or just?
for both?
Oh,
Or if just
wow.
for one, or just for one is fine as well.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll swap those two. That looks bigger.
cute little feller.
And this little guy.
Oh, shiced. Don't fall. There we go. Okay, feller, you're good to go with your toes.
I think I am too.
How you doing with your toes, Julie?
I think I'm doing it. It's a little small, but I got it.
Okay. Yeah, they're gonna be small
Right.
and they're gonna be hard to work with, but it's so worth it in the end, again, because if you look at this little guy, the one that we did, or that I did,
He's
the toes
adorable.
are really small. Okay,
Sure.
they are small little guys. So here's the bottom again, so you can actually, if it'll focus, there we go. So you can actually see
Wow. Yeah.
what they look like. I just tucked them into that little pocket. So everybody have their toes so we can start attaching them?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Alex, Evan, and Jack, are you guys good with your toes? Yeah? I see your big dramatic head shake, Evan, so I believe you're ready. And Alex, I got your yupper. Okay, so what we're gonna do is you wanna start with the big toe, okay? Because when you put the big toe in first, you might realize, oh, it's bigger than I thought it was, so you might not be able to fit all the toes you made, okay? Don't try and cram them in there, because then it just kind of looks all clumpy and it doesn't, excuse me, then it doesn't look right. So what we're gonna do is, again, remember, try and pick it up on the skinny side, not the big side, because we want the big side to stick out, okay? So using the toothpick, I just kind of poked. There we go. It wants to focus underneath. But I picked up the skinny side, and then I'm just gonna decide where I want to place it. Now, usually the big toe goes on the inside. Okay, think of our own feet. And I'm just going to rest it so the little round part sticks out, okay? So the little round part is sticking out. Now to attach it, and we want to do this to each toe individually, and I don't know how I keep getting paper on my guy.
You're
There we
gonna
go.
help.
Okay, so how we want to attach it is just take your toothpick and you're just going to roll the little pointy part down. You don't want to flatten out your toe. You don't want to press on the actual toe that's sticking out. We want to leave that free floating, okay? Because then it stays a little separate from the little skin flap that we have, and that's what makes it look like the skin is actually folding over the foot. But if I were to press my toe in and up, it would connect it right there, and then it would just become connected and smoothed out, and you wouldn't have that little space. So you would lose that effect of the skin rolling over the feet, okay? So once you have your big toe in, you can go ahead and grab your other toe, and you can add that one in the same way. Set it right next to the other one, and you're just going to roll it. Just roll it to attach it. Now the rolling is important. You need to make sure you roll that little teardrop part. You want to make sure you actually roll that into the bottom of the body. Okay. Otherwise, what's going to happen is when you go to bake it, and if you don't have that part actually smoothed in and connected to the bottom, they're just going to fall off when you bake it. They're just going to break right off. Okay. So you want to make sure that you attach it really good. But again, don't press on the toes to lift them up or to press them into the skin flap. The only part that's you're pressing in is the skinny part of the teardrop into the bottom of the body. Okay, so then you just keep going down the line with all your toes.
Yes,
Okay,
I
so
have
then-
my third toe on.
and then just lightly smooth it out. And then you can add, just keep working on your toes to however many toes that you've got going on. So this little guy has 4. So then when you're kind of facing him, you can see his little toes peeking out. Okay, but you still have that space from the skin right here and the toes. They're not connected. Okay. So then if he was standing up, you could see his toes that way. Okay. So then once you have your first set of toes on, go ahead and attach your second set of toes,
I didn't make my second set of toes.
or make your second set of toes if you haven't made them yet, and then get those guys attached. And if you want, oh, I just squished all of his toes up. There we go. Remember, it is clay, so it is very forgiving. So if you accidentally drop it like I just did, you can reform it, you can fix it because it's not baked. The only time this clay becomes hard and permanent is when you bake it. Or if it sits in the sun. I've actually had it bake in my car one summer day. I was on my way to a camp at a school, and the clay baked in my car just from driving from my house to the school. So half the clay was hard by the time I got there.
Wow.
So then it just gets all crumbly. And then once you have your toes attached on your main guy, you can go ahead and attach your toes on your other one, whether it's your little one or if you have another same size one. Oop, there we go. I did that one backwards. And if you want, if you decide, oh, why not skip a toe to make it look like he's missing a toe? It's kind of like how Jerry Garcia was missing a finger. You can go ahead and
I've
kids, if
actually
you don't know who Jerry Garcia is, you can ask your parents. I'm pretty sure they know who he is.
Mhm.
So this is what it should look like. You can also decide if you want a missing toe. Maybe he got in some kind of battle and that's what he lost was a toe. Make up a story for it.
Hello.
Make up a story for your guy. It gets you more invested in creating them. And it makes it more fun too. So here is focus. Come on.
There you
we
go.
go. So here's the bottom of mine. So right now I'm just a body with a bunch of toes sticking out. Okay. Again, we don't need the feet because they're going to be covered up anyways. We're giving the illusion that there's feet underneath them. So standing up, you can see his little toes sticking out. Here he is laying flat. You can see all his little toes sticking out. Plus you can still see, well, if it'll focus, you can see. Let's do this.
Can I see the bottom of it, please?
Yep. Real quick, give me 1 second. Just make
Okay.
sure that you still have that spacing in between the toes and that little flap of skin. Okay, we want that little space. So here's the bottom of it again. Let's see if I can get it nice and close.
Okay,
Say something.
thank you.
So if we were just looking at it this way, if you just say you just like logged in and you saw this, it almost looks like it's little hairs sticking out or maybe like eyelashes if you didn't know these were actually toes. What's up, Alex?
I actually once high-fived somebody who had 4 fingers.
You did? Did it feel weird or no?
Not really.
It was just like a normal high five. They were just missing a finger.
Yeah. It was actually at the Coburn's
Yeah.
2 blocks away from our house.
Oh man, I lost my toe. Oh, it went to the other toe.
So once you get all your toes attached, you can go ahead and just stand them up. Because then it'll give the natural curve to the toes. Because remember, this is clay. So even the smallest amount of pressure from the body is going to adjust the toes. So that will give a nice little curve. And that will also help too with that little flap of skin we were trying to create. That will also help with that, kind of give it the natural fold over as well. Probably attach my toes to this little one here. So whatever you do to your first one, you want to do to your second one, but it does not have to be exactly the same. Oh, lost a toe. Go.
Oh, God. Had a rough life.
So this little guy that I have going on, I was not paying attention and I put my big toe on the outside. So I'm just going to leave it that way. He's a little backwards. And that's all right with me.
Hashtag do good.
Because they're so small, it wouldn't be worth trying to take them off and adjust them. So I'm just going to go with it. So now he has his tiny little toes sticking out. Okay, so I need to. Okay, so if you can see this little guy with his little toes sticking out right here. And you also want to make sure too that when he's standing up on his own, it's hard to tell, you can't really see unless if I flip him this way, but then that defeats the whole purpose of this next part. you want to make sure that the toes aren't flipping upward. Okay, we want to make sure they're actually down and not flipping up. A little bit of flip up is okay, but you don't want them like super like you're bending his toe back to touch his belly button. Okay, we don't want it that high. So you can go ahead and just kind of take your toothpick and just gently move them. You don't have to do any pressure at all. You just gently move them downward. Like I had to do that with my little guy because his toes were facing up towards his face. Just so it looks like he's actually standing up. And then you can also take your toothpick and you can, this one I can actually show you this way. If you want to have a little bit of space in between the toes, you can take your toothpick and you can just very gently spread the toes apart. So kind of his fingers could be splayed out like this versus together like this. So if you'd rather have them splayed out, you can very gently move each toe away from the other one. So they can stay like this, or you can spread them out.
Yeah, we already.
Okay, you can decide how you want your toes to be. It'll just give more character to your guy.
Did we already make the fingers?
No, we did not do the fingers yet.
Okay.
That will actually be our next step.
Go, Charlie Brown.
Fingers.
Does everybody have all their toes attached? Yeah, on both
Yep.
of them. Evan, can I see your toes, please? Those look good, Alex.
Thanks.
Oh,
Oh,
those are nice.
cute. Those are nice. See mine?
No, because you have to put it in front of the camera.
I'm
There
trying.
you go. Oh yeah, those look good.
Oh, adorable.
There's mine. Can you
Oh,
see?
Evan, I love yours. They're real tiny. Oh, those look good.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I know. That one so looks like an alien to me, Evan. I love that one, and I love the toes. Okay, so we are going to move on to our little arms. Okay, our little arms. So these ones, you can kind of have them. I just had them rest on his belly. You don't have to. Okay, we can, this one, I think the little guy I'll have rest on his belly because he's so small. It might be hard to kind of get the arms to move in certain ways. But this one, I will have maybe an arm sticking upward or out, something. And then the other one resting. So you can kind of decide how you want the arms, how you want them positioned. But first we need to make them. So what we're going to do is we're going to take your ball of skin. You're going to rip off, I don't know, maybe a chunk like this and roll it into a ball. I'll show you here in a second, just so you can kind of see reference wise. Okay. Or on fingernail wise. Okay. So it's kind of big. This will probably be enough for both arms. Okay.
It's pretty much my whole.
For me.
Thing.
So what we're going to do is we're going to roll this out just into a chunky Tic Tac. Okay. Just to help us cut it in half. So then again, you can take your knife, your fingernail, whatever it is to cut it in half. You can use your toothpick if you want. And you're just going to cut this chunk in half or rip it in half. I'm a big fan of just ripping. So you can, and then roll each one into a ball. Okay, roll each one into a ball.
Inhale.
Now, if one, like if yours ends up like mine, where one is a lot bigger than the other, just take a little bit off of the big one and add it to the smaller one. But if they're really, really close, if they're close in size, don't worry about trying to make them perfect. Okay, it's okay.
I want to make it so that my thing has one arm in and one arm that's like holding the toothpick like this.
Yes, yep, you can definitely do that. And I will show you how to do that. Okay, So from here, what we're going to do is we're just going to take one of them. It doesn't matter which one, because we're just going to make an arm. So one is not better than the other. We're just going to take one of the balls, and what we're going to do, oh, a toe. I found a toe. I'm not sure where that came from, but there we go. All right. Well, so what we're going to do with this one, we are actually just going to roll this out into kind of like a tic tac, but one end is going to be a little bit skinnier than the other end. Okay, now don't make it into a full-on point like a teardrop like we did with the toes. We don't want that. Okay. The big end, because the small end is going to be the part that blends into the body, the big end is going to be the part where we actually cut the fingers out. Okay. Or cut them into the clay to make the fingers. So for reference size, so you can kind of see what I'm working with here is, here's the toothpick. So it's not too crazy long, but it's not really short and stumpy either. But I also want you to size it to your guy, because your guy is a different size than mine. Okay, everybody has a different size going on. So it's very important that you size it to your guy just by gently resting it on there on the side of the body. Now, if the arm, oops, sorry, I was rolling it the wrong way. If the arm takes up a whole chunk of the body, make a little bit smaller. Doesn't need to be that big. Okay. So just so you can kind of see what it looks like on mine, but you want a little bit of it, sticking out, if his hand is sticking out. Okay. Because as we create the fingers, the arm length is going to shorten up and it's going to get a little bit wider. Okay. So keep that in mind as well. So for the fingers, what I want you to do, okay, so right now, let's see if I want to see if you guys can see this. If it will focus. I want to focus. So if you can see the roundness of the top of the hand, the bigger part, the bigger end. Okay, if you can see, I want to see how close I can get if it actually will focus. There we go. So if you see how round that is, what we're going to do is that round end, we are just going to take our finger and we are just going to very gently tap it.
Oh my goodness.
I don't want you to pinch it down, but just tap it. So now, I'm going to clear everything off my board here so you make sure it actually focuses on this.
That's what I'm
See how it's kind of flat now a little bit?
making beads.
If it will focus on this. There we go.
Yeah.
You see how it's slightly flattened, but it's not completely flat.
Who knows? You never
What I
know.
saw looked good, Evan, before you dropped it. Yes, that looks good. Yep.
Amazon.
So from here, now we kind of have this lightly flattened, but it's still round. It's not completely squished up. What we're going to do, again, you can either use your cutting tool that you have. You can use the toothpick. You can use your fingernail, but be careful with your fingernail because you might cut it too big. Okay. What I like to do is I just like to cut out 2 lines. So I just cut, here's one line that I just cut, and they're going to look a little sloppy to begin with. That's okay. So here's line 1 that I just cut.
So you cut them all the way through.
Yep, all the way through. Yep, because now we're going to make the fingers so we can separate them out. So we
Okay.
have 1 line cut, and then you can, I always like to clean off the end of my toothpick because sometimes you get little chunks of clay on there. And then you can just go in and you can cut line number 3. But it's easier if it's on the board because then my finger moves. There we go. Get on here. So then you can cut out line number 2, and that creates 3 fingers. So when I said it looks a little sloppy to begin with, this is what I was talking about. Okay, so there it is. See how the edges look a little rough and
Yep.
scraggly and kind of crummy. They have
Yep.
like little debris of clay on there, little chunks of clay that when you ripped off, it peeled off. So what we're gonna do from there, this is where I use the toothpick. I take the toothpick, I put it in between the toes, and I help separate the toes out. Okay, I use it to pull the toes apart, to splay them out, or the fingers, sorry, we're making the hands. Okay, so now you can still see how they look a little sloppy. The fingers look a little sloppy. This is how mine started out, and then this is how they finished. Okay, so they're nice and smooth like that, but this is how it started out. Come
I
on.
sort of want mine to have a little bit rough fingers.
So to smooth it, what you're gonna do is you can take your fingers, where did I put my toothpick? Here it is. You can take your finger, and this is where you want to be really careful. And you're just going to gently kind of start shaping and squeezing each one to round it up, to make it round. And I have eraser shaving. There we go. I'm just collecting everything today.
There.
Okay, so it starts to shape up a little bit more. Okay,
This doesn't have autofocus.
now to help kind of get it round and smooth, this is where I take the toothpick and I do that little rolling motion. Okay, so I put the toothpick in between just the tip, the skinny part. We don't want them to go any wider, otherwise you can rip a finger off. Okay, I've done that many times. So I just kind of put the tip of the toothpick in there and I roll it back and forth. Gently roll it, and then sometimes I roll it up the side and then up the other side. And then that just helps smooth out any little divots or anything that I have going on in there. Okay, so it looks a lot cleaner than when we first cut them out. Okay, so now from here, this is where you can lightly start tapping the tops of them. If you don't want him to have pointy fingers, if you want him to be more claw-like, you can keep the points in there. Or you can just lightly tap the tops to kind of make them little studs. Just to smooth them out a little bit. Okay.
Mine isn't like this. Mine isn't like this.
You don't have the 3 splayed out.
Yeah, but
How
mine
is yours?
isn't like this.
Do you want them together?
More like in the middle.
Because if you don't, if they're too close together for your liking, take your toothpick and gently put it in between and then just pull them further apart.
Okay.
That looks good, Evan.
When I'm done, I'm gonna use the rest of this white. Are we gonna use the rest of this white?
You probably won't use all of it, so you'll have spare.
Okay, I'll rip off like this much.
Well, it all depends on how much you use to finish off the little guy.
Yeah. Is this the last class or is there still another one?
There's one more after today. So we'll have one more.
Okay.
Now, if you're like me, and when you're holding the end of it, if you weren't working on your surface, and if you're like me and you kind of hold it, I realized I was kind of pinching a little hard at the bottom. So he kind of got squished and lengthened out a little bit more than I want the arms to be, because I do want, because he is just a little guy, I do want the arms to be a little more stumpy for mine. You can just take your finger or your hand, you can gently hold it, don't press, hold it in between your fingers, and then you can just take your thumb, or you can tap it on your surface, very gently tap it, or a finger. So then it will kind of reshape it and re-shorten it. It'll kind of mush it back up into itself. So then your finger becomes, or your arm, sorry, becomes shorter, just like mine did right here, became shorter, and it's not so long anymore. So if that ever happens, because it does happen to me all the time, I get so focused on working on the small bits that I forget about how much pressure I'm actually putting on my clay, how much I'm actually squeezing it. So if that happens, you can always fix it. Okay. So once you have one arm done, once you have the fingers made, what I want you to do is I want you to place him, if I just cut his head. There we go. And make sure you don't cut your guy's head like I just did. Pay attention to what you're doing. I just kind of stabbed him. So I want you to gently place the arm on there again, just to double size it to make sure. Okay, just to make sure that it works and it fits for your little guy.
Yep.
Okay. We want to make sure that it still works, because sometimes when we handle it, we make little things. That looks good, Evan. So go ahead, take the arm off. We're going to set the arm aside, and we're going to make the second arm. Okay. We want to make sure we set it aside. We don't want to attach it yet. We want to set it aside. So we have one already made, size to your guy, and we know that it's good, you like it, it's working. That way you can make another one and you have it right here, so you know if it's going to be too big or too small. Okay. But again, if it's off just by a tiny bit, don't worry about it. Okay. So you're going to roll it out into that slight tic tac, but remember, you want one end to be a little bit skinnier than the other. Okay, a little bit skinnier, not crazy skinny. We don't want it pointy. Okay. And remember, I'm going to size it to this guy right now. It's about the same length. And that's actually perfect. Because when I start cutting out, it is going to get a little bit longer until I start working with my fingers. And then it'll kind of form back into the length that the first arm is. Okay. So remember, before you start cutting, gently press down on the big end, very gently. Remember, we don't want it flat. Okay. Yes, Evan, what's up? Your speaker's off. Turn your microphone on so I can hear you.
What if we want him to hold something?
If you want him to hold something, I'll do that with this hand. Okay. I'll do that with this hand for the holding purposes. Okay. So
Make it like back a little bit, so it's like in a like.
yep, you can adjust your arm however you want it to look, but I will go through the process of making him hold on to something. Okay. So, but this right now, the first steps are still going to be the same as how we made our fingers. Okay. As after that, it's going to be a little different. So you're going to cut out your first line to create your first finger. And then you're going to cut out your second line to create your second and third finger. Okay. And again, we're going to go through all that shaping and all that fun stuff to get our fingers shaped out so they're not all sloppy to begin with. Okay. So then take your toothpick, spread them out so you can get your fingers in there and work better. Okay. So it should kind of look like a chicken foot right now. Gently pick it up. Okay. And then you're going to start gently pinching to shape it, just to get those rough edges smoothed in. Okay,
My fingers are too thin.
if they're too thin, then roll it back into a ball and start over. Because if they're too thin, they might be, did I move that whole thing? I did. There we go. Sorry, I just moved my entire table. I'm having issues today. If they're too thin, they have a better chance of breaking off because they're going to be a lot more fragile, especially if you want them holding on to something. Okay. And if it's best to have them holding on to something that can be baked with him, it is possible to have them form around something if you want something that's plastic. Say if he was holding on to something like this, obviously I couldn't put this in the oven, otherwise it would melt, but I could get them shaped around it and then pull this out and then bake them. But when you bake them, they do get a little bit smaller, just a little, not a whole lot, but just a little, okay? So if you can have something that he's holding on to that he can bake with, it would be better, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. Okay, so anything that's wood, metal, ceramic, nothing that's going to melt. Okay.
You think I could?
So if you want them holding on to the toothpick, it can be baked. Okay, that can be baked with it. That's just fine. So once you get your fingers shaped out, do the little rolling process with your toothpick just to smooth out any harsh edges that you've got going on. Remember, don't squeeze them. I have to remind myself that. And then if the fingers are a little too pointy for your liking, go ahead and do the little taps and then tap them down. There we go.
Finger.
I need to look at the stats.
Okay. Yes, Evan, what's up?
Beads.
So the toothpick can be baked with him?
Yes, your toothpick can be. Yes, it's okay if your toothpick is in there.
So,
That
are you
is
coming down to eat with me?
statistics
Are you busy? You don't have to. Okay.
video. 30 milliseconds.
That's what I'm saying.
26 milliseconds.
You got my letters ready? Yeah. Oh my goodness, I'm so happy.
So once you have your two hands made for your main guy, go ahead and make your two hands for your other guy. Okay. So, and obviously, if you have a really small one, okay, like mine, the arms are going to be a lot smaller. And then that's where like an X-Acto knife or a butter knife would come in more handy to cut the fingers out than the toothpick, because you'll get a cleaner cut.
Jeez Louise.
What are we doing? That little piece of stuff. What are we doing with our little piece of stuff? Oh.
Okay. So let's see if I have a sharp tool over here. Oh, I think I only have a box cutter. So I have a box cutter that I'm going to use to, because I don't have My X-Acto knives over here. All my clay stuff is on the other side of the building. So I would just use this, or again, like a butter knife, something with a thinner edge. And I would cut out my fingers. Now, if you have a really dude, like a really small guy like I do, you almost don't even have to shape out the fingers. Okay,
My little
I'm gonna try and show you what my little fingers look like on this little guy here.
I got my mini Grim Reaper.
Your mini Grim Reaper.
Yeah. This is the smallest knife we have.
Well, that'll work.
Yeah.
A little
Yeah.
mini scythe. It does look like that.
It looks like a. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and
Cargo cutlery.
carefully pick up these arms without. There we go. Whoop.
Got
You
my
guys can.
Grim Reaper.
Oh, his toe is stuck. Come on. There. Oh, so close.
Oh, geez, I need to make his.
There we go. Okay. So if you guys can see how tiny these are,
I need
okay, tiny hands. These are for
Wow.
the main guy. Okay. And then those
Wow.
tiny ones, you can still make them the same way, but you just have to be a lot more careful and delicate with them. Okay.
Oofda.
So it is possible to make them really small. You just have to be patient. And
And-
now I don't want to put these back on the thing because I'm scared they're going to get ruined. Wow, there we go.
and we need a magnifying glass.
There we go.
Sorry if I'm a few milliseconds.
So
Half a second slow. Oh no.
does everybody at least have one set of arms made?
Yes.
Okay.
Huh?
Oh. Yeah. I have 2 arms. I'm making my 3rd one right now. Here. I'm making, I accidentally started taking it off of my other arm.
Oh, the clay.
Right here. That. At least it's thicker. Oh, tiny one. Maybe a tiny bit bigger. My hands have sparkles all over them.
Yep, that happens with the, well, because I think it's the silver clay that has the metallic in it.
Sparkles.
Yep, that
Eventually,
little shimmer.
my hands will just be. My hands will just be like brighter than the sun. More reflective than a mirror. Wow. Sparkles. Captain Sparkles. My mom said this is a paring knife. I say it's a Grim Reaper knife.
Yes, that would be a paring knife, but I do like Grim Reaper knife better too. How's everybody doing with their arms?
Done.
Good.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to ask Bobby Duke for one of those little swords that he made with a pencil. If you don't know, Bobby Duke is a funny YouTuber that's really good at making things.
Cool.
I actually just uploaded a new video yesterday. The Grim Knife.
Give you a couple more minutes to finish up the arms,
Grim
and then
Knife.
we'll get them attached.
What about making it so he can hold something?
Yes, yep,
He or she.
yep, we'll go through all of that.
Something I've always wondered. Do you guys think that that aliens have different genders?
That's an interesting question.
Right,
Yeah.
I would assume so.
I have never in my life thought of that.
And how do those dead bugs get in the light fixtures?
Good question.
You have really good questions.
The universe is a huge mystery, isn't it?
Along with chocolate chips. What other ones are there? I forgot. Could we talk?
Okay, does everybody have all 4 arms made?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And just a reminder, if you keep picking at it, it's probably fine. You're just looking for something to be wrong with it. Okay. I have to remind myself that, oh, it actually looks good. But
thought
I
you were
just
talking
keep
about
looking
me.
for something to be wrong. So I keep picking at it and then I end up ruining it and then I have to start over. So it does happen. So I would suggest just get out of your own way and let it happen. So for our arms, you can pretty much have them hold on to anything. If you want them to hold on to like a little flower, like a little plastic flower, obviously you don't want to bake that with them, but you can form the hand around it so it can shape it. Okay. So if you want them to hold on to something, this is what we're going to do for that. So what we're going to do is you're going to pick whatever hand that you want, whatever hand, and then not stab it for one. Let's not stab it. That'll help. What I like to do is I like to create a little pocket or a little nook that is going to be where the hand actually curls around. Kind of like how we have our palm, and when we go like this, we create like a little pocket right here. Okay, we create like a little pocket to where we could set something in there and it kind of holds in. That's what we want to create. Okay, we're going to create that little nook or that little pocket so something can rest in there. And then we're going to curl the fingers around it. Okay, you want to make sure it actually has somewhere to sit first before you curl. Okay, so, and then again, take a look at your arm. Okay, when you made your arm and your fingers, it has a very subtle natural curve to it. That little curve, so would be, for mine, I wonder if you guys can see this. Kind of, sort of. So it has a natural bump right here on this outside. That's going to be the top. So like that's going to be the top of my hand. The other side is going to be the palm of my hand. Okay, so we want the palm of the hand facing up because that's the part that needs to curve around. Okay, so you'll see a natural curve. It will just kind of naturally roll a certain way. So to make your little nook, you can just take your toothpick and very gently press it in to the point where you can pull your hand away and it's stuck in there. Okay. And then what I like to do is I like to just kind of roll it around a little bit. And then you can actually see, let me see if you guys can see that crease. You can actually kind of see that little crease right there where the toothpick was. Okay, so now there's a little indent. So it's like you created the palm and it's slightly curved. Now you don't want to go so tough on it or press so hard that it actually goes through to the other side. Then you just cut all of your fingers off. And then you're going to have to start that process over again. So once you have that made, you're going to place your object in there. Okay, whatever it is, if you're going to use the toothpick or whatever you have. And then this is where you're going to gently curl. You notice now my fingers are pointing up. Okay, now they're pointing up towards my toothpick. And then I'm just going to gently take one finger at a time. I'm going to curl it around my toothpick. So now he's holding it. Okay, so now he's holding it. Okay, and then I'll show you this way too, like this. So it quits zooming in on the stuff below. Okay. So now, but I'm not finished. If you notice, the tips of the fingers are still pointing outwards. I want to make sure he's actually grasping that. And I'm going to curl those fingers in a little bit more. Don't squeeze them down on there because then you just lost all of the curve of the fingers. Okay, we don't want them flat. Okay. And then this too is where you can spread out the fingers a little bit more, or you can have them closer together when they're grasping. So it's up to you on how you want, your fingers placed, how you want them to look. Okay. If you want them splayed out a little bit more, or if you want them to be closer together. Okay. Now what you're going to do, because we didn't flatten them, you should be able to pull your toothpick out. Okay. Remember, because we didn't flatten. So now when you hold, I'll show you right here. So now it's almost like, it looks like he's making a little fist, but not a full on fist because the fingers are not touching the wrist. Okay. So now you have that hole in there that you should be able to slide that toothpick in and out of, because we still want to use our toothpick for stuff. Unless if you have another toothpick at home, you can leave this in there. Okay. Now when we attach, for showing purposes, I do have a whole pack of toothpicks here, so I can grab another one. Again, if you have another one at home and you want to use the toothpick, you can go ahead and do that. I'm just going to break this one in half here. If not, if you have something else you want them to be holding, go ahead and keep that in there if you want. Now, when putting it back in, don't try and like mash it in under the fingers. You actually want to go in from the side. Go in from the side and then slide it through, okay? Because if you try and like mash it in between the fingers, like if it was like this and you tried to go in this way, like if I was trying to put it back in and I was going in this way, you're going to mush up the fingers and you're going to ruin it. So what you want to do is you actually want to go in from the side and then just slide it all the way back through. Okay, that way you're not messing up the fingers that you just did. Then sometimes you have to just kind of hold it at the base of the arm to slide it back in there. Okay. And then you can kind of gently get that pocket in there. So now my little guy is holding a spear. Now, to attach, okay? I would suggest attaching the non-holding hand first so you can get the general idea. Okay? So you can get the general idea of how to attach it. Again, this arm is also going to have a natural curve to it. So you can decide which, well, obviously it's going to, the bumpier side, the one that has more of a curve is the outside. So it's the back of the hand, not the palm. Okay. But you can decide which side of the body it goes on. Now, you can have your, this is how you can place your arms. Okay. You're creating your character. If I can get this the right way. You don't want to have the arm all the way on the back, okay? The arm doesn't grow out of the back. Okay, the arm actually grows out of the side. So we don't want to attach it back here. Okay, that's too far. That's coming out of the back, and we don't want that. Okay, so what we want to do is we're actually going to start it kind of right in the middle on the side of the body. Okay, right in the middle on the side. Now, before you actually attach it, you need to decide which way you want it to go. Do you want your arm to come sticking straight out front? Do you want it to curve and kind of hold on to the belly? Or do you want it facing up to where he's kind of touching his head? You can have him doing that. If you want the arm facing straight down, I would suggest, because his arms will be a lot longer, and if you want to stand him up, he'll be holding himself up with his hands. I would suggest moving the guy up, the little hand up towards the neck. If it's still too long, then that's when you're just going to tap the end of your arm to make it a little bit shorter so it'll fit. But that's only if you want it going straight down. Okay. So I like this one. I'll have him kind of holding forward with this one, and then this other arm, we're going to have, maybe I'll switch it up. This arm is he's going to actually have facing up, kind of like holding his head a little bit. So to attach the arm, so get it in position how you want it to be. But to attach the arm, you can either use your finger, but be very gentle with it, or you can use the toothpick. We're going to do that rolling motion again. Now this is going to take a little bit of time because I don't want you to press super hard into it, because what I want you to do is you're actually going to start towards the middle of the arm and you're going to gently roll down. Because if you just press at the base really hard, then you kind of misshape the arm up. We want it to kind of smoothly flow from the arm into the body, okay? Kind of like this guy where it just kind of flows right from the body out into the arm. So it's almost, it's like your arm grew out of the side of your body. We don't want to just a really thin part attaching it to make it look like, oh, this is where we stuck it on. Okay, so you kind of start towards the middle of the arm and just roll down. So then it kind of stays the same width throughout. And then it just lightly attaches at the bottom. And then when you get towards the bottom, when it starts to attach really well, you can just take your toothpick and smooth it out. We want it kind of seamless. We don't want to show where we actually attach the arm. We want to make it look like it was there the entire time. Okay, so then it just becomes really smooth. But you also have to be careful. Remember, don't pinch the face too much because then you have to adjust the eyelids again. Okay, be careful of the toes that we just put on. So this is the part where you always have to be really careful. Otherwise, you're going to ruin all the other pieces we just attached. So you have to make sure, that's why I always like to hold on the bottom and the top of the head, because then I know I'm not hitting anything else. And then I just kind of rotate my hand around, my wrist around, and my arm so I can get different parts. So I don't ruin everything that, especially those toes.
I need to redo 3 of my toes. They're squished down.
So then you can get the arm attached. It's focusing on my sword arm. And now this is where you can decide, okay, I have the arm attached. Now, do I want the arm flat so it's like it's just resting right up on my head? Or, I gently turn him here because my arm doesn't bend like that. Or what we can do is we can lightly put a toothpick in between to pull the hand away from the head, very gently, so I can get a little space in between. And then what I would do is kind of curve the fingers around so it curves into my head, and it can attach the fingers that way. So I have a little space showing in between my arms. So my arm isn't flush against my entire body and head. Okay, so I have a little bit of space in between there. So it's like he's kind of scratching his head. Like if he's confused or anything like that. Okay, and then you can also shape your fingers. If you want them more just the fingertips that are on the head, you can point the fingertips more. So it's just those resting on the head. However you want your little guy to be. Okay, if you want it something like that. Okay. So now he's just scratching his head over here because he's confused about something or wondering about something. Now you don't have to, because the arm is secure down here, you don't have to go through that same process and do the fingers. Okay. What happens when you bake this clay is it does melt a little bit, like a really, really tiny bit, it does melt. So the fingertips will be stuck on there just enough to hold it up, but the arm won't fall off because you have it secure down here, kind of down in the armpit area. Okay. So don't feel like you have to sit and secure each finger to the head if you have the arm up. Now if you're just doing the where he's holding his belly type thing, if you're just doing that. Okay, Alex, let me see your guy. Hold it up. You dropped him. Oh, look at he's cute.
Yeah,
I like his spear.
3 of my toes fell off and I need to redo them.
Yep, you can
Oh,
just
that's
reattach those
adorable.
toes, but that looks good.
They literally
Nice, Evan. I love that one. Again, he looks like he's screaming. That's what he's doing, his battle cry. He's getting ready for war.
okay.
So those of you, if you're just doing the I'm going to hold the belly type thing,
How
like
come
he's just kind of holding himself, you just want to lightly wrap the arms and the fingers to curve with the curvature of your body. Don't force it into anything. Just gently curve it so it holds, it just wraps around the stomach or the torso. Okay. Now with mine, because I wanted one arm to be lower than the other, I just positioned one arm, I just moved it a little bit lower, not the actual part where I connected. Those are the same. roughly the same area. I just angled one arm down a little bit more than the other, just so they weren't exactly the same. I wanted to give them a little bit of difference. Okay.
Can we rebake it after we've already baked it?
No, you can, but you need to be real careful because you can burn it if you bake it too much. It can burn and then it gets a really gross smell. So, and if you want them, obviously, if you want the arm to be pointing, like the little sword pointing outward, you're just gonna stick the arm directly horizontally to the side of the body, and then you're gonna use your toothpick and you're gonna move around the base of that arm all the way around and make sure you attach it really, really well, because I do not want arms falling off when you bake them. Because you went through all of that and you don't want broken arms. Okay. And remember, if you get one of your guys' arms attached, go ahead and start attaching the arms to your other guy. Now, if you have a little dude like I do, be really, really careful. Okay. Be really careful. Just because we don't want you to ruin, because those small things can ruin really easily. And if that happens, then you need to remake it. Looks cute, Alex.
Thanks.
Oops. And again, be careful if you're actually holding the guy up. So I just realized I was squishing his head down into his body again. So just pay attention to how much pressure you're actually using. And just when I feel like we're hitting a good stride, we only have like 5 minutes left.
What?
I know, right? It goes too fast. So here's my little guy holding his spear or knife. I
Oh,
and
he's
I love
cute.
it. Look at him. Like so awesome. Oh,
That's
that one makes me
cute.
laugh and smile. I don't know why, but I love that one. That one's my favorite.
I have little short arms here.
Let me see.
Well, I just have one on.
Oh, well, that looks good. My other guy, the first one I made has short arms. He has short arms. This one I made longer because I knew I want him to hold something. So the short arms are just fine.
Oh, shucky duck.
I keep flattening my toes. Not my real life toes, but my.
Looks good.
Thanks.
Okay.
Here, look at this.
I don't
Look.
have to get.
He looks cute. What is he holding?
Well, it's supposed to be a flower, but I don't know that it turned out that way.
Well, we can, if you're unsure about it, we can, so next time we meet, so next week, sorry, I keep setting him down wrong, so his arm goes all wonky on me. What we can go through is if you want to make anything out of clay for him to be holding,
Yeah.
I can walk you through the steps.
Oh, great. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yes, yep. There we go. Now he can hold his spear.
I'm gonna get him.
So here's my little guy standing up, holding his spear. Again, you want to make sure he can stand. Keep him standing.
I'm gonna make my guy's spear actually like sharp. Ooh. Super sharp.
So again, remember, if you're making a little guy, be real gentle with the hands. I can't even pick mine up. There we go. I think with my little guy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have his arms sticking straight out like he wants a hug. Because he's so little and cute.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
But that can be
Hello.
his defense mechanism. He acts all cute and looks cute, but really he's like the secret weapon,
Ah.
and he's a vicious little thing.
This thing is actually really sharp. Oh, like the baby and the Croods.
Yeah.
Like that kind of vicious.
Yes. Yep. Kind of like my dog Lilu. She looks all cute and sweet, but she's secretly a demon at heart. She's the killer of little woodland creatures.
Oh,
We try
dear.
and stop her, but sometimes it happens.
Oh,
Yeah.
My little itty bitty.
poor squirrels.
Yep. We have a possum that's coming up towards the house again. She already caught one.
Oh, no.
We have another one. We saw him the other day. The back light turned on and the possum was right by the door. We're like, uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
So I think I'll name this little itty bitty one. I think I'll name this one Lilu.
I was just gonna say.
Good one.
All right, you guys, we are done for today.
Wow.
That's cute, Alex. We're done for today. So next week we will finish off with, like I said, I will help you. If you want to make certain things from to hold out of clay, we can definitely do that. So if you want a flower or a fish, I can help you. I can walk you through the steps on that to do those. But we're also going to add the little spriggies on the head. And that's where the extra clay is going to come into play. Okay, so your extra pieces that you have, that's where those are going to come into play, is we're going to use some of those. And if you have some of your ball of skin, if you have some of that left, you can go ahead and use that as well. You don't have to, it can just be your other colors too. Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Nope. You
Mm-mm.
did very well explaining. Thank you.
Ah,
You are
excellent.
welcome. What's up, Alex? Do you have a question? Or are you just waving frantically?
I'm gonna name the little guy Bobby and the big guy George.
Oh, I like the names.
Bobby and George.
Bobby and
Bobby
Joe.
and George. So yeah, start thinking of names for your
Good.
little creatures. It'll just help give them a little bit more character and bring them to life a little bit more for you as well. So with that being said, good job
Alright.
today. Mary Jo, if you have any questions on anything, reach out to us at the Art Center here, and then we'll get back to you, okay? I hope your pre-recorded videos are going smooth for you. So I will say goodbye to everybody, and next week will be our last week together,
Wow.
okay?
Oh, that went fast.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, you
Bye.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
If I can get, how do I get a? Oh, didn't do too well that time.
What happened?
No, I'm trying to figure out how to get out of here. Oh, leave. That would be a clue.